Look at that guy, man.
How about that guy? I mean, I think I'm moving in the right direction, to be honest. I feel like I look a little slimmer than when that picture was taken. Maybe just a little bit. Is it wishful thinking? I don't know. I'm going to go with it.
Your hair is spectacular today.
All right. Well, let's get down to business. So we're here today as step 4, part 4 of our Back to the Basics, Passport to Production. And the goal of this, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, the goal of this was really to introduce everybody who is a part of our organization and those who raise their hand and say, hey, I'd like to learn some more, to the foundational principles and concepts that we run our business through. And this step 4 is really about one part of the triangle that we learned from Gary Keller, which there's 3 parts of the core triangle of the base of our business, which are leads, listings, and what's the third one, Chris? Leverage, correct. And so in order to run a really highly productive real estate business, you have to actually work constantly toward mastery over those 3 things. Leads, which is the inflow of opportunities that you'll have a chance to deliver a value proposition to. Listings, which is inventory. Listings are the thing that actually creates opportunities for us to get paid. And leverage is a really tricky one to get your head around. A lot of people misunderstand what leverage is, but one of the best definitions that I ever got was that leverage is any system, tool, resource, or person who can help you magnify or geometrically expand your ability to influence an outcome. And so anytime that you're using leverage, what you're basically doing is saying, I'm going to do one thing that should create an exponential output. So in the model of being able to do that, 6 to 8 strategic conversations to master your listing transaction, what everybody here needs to understand is that this requires mastery of leverage. And there's a really, really simple reason why. Because if you were to hear from me, Chris, if you'd never sold a house and didn't have any insight into how we do it, and I said, Chris, you can get your client from the time they hire you to the closing table and only have 6 to 8 conversations with them, would you believe that?
No.
Most agents think I'm totally batty when I tell them that not only can you do this in 6 to 8 strategic high-level conversations, but at the end of the transaction, not only will they be grateful, thankful, and profusely willing to support you and refer business to you in the future, but they will have a much better client experience than when you have 40 or 50 conversations. Now, there's a key word in 6 to 8 strategic conversations, and that key word is strategic. That means that there is intention, there is design, and there is an absolute outcome that we are seeking. So today we're going to review that, and we're going to talk about what these conversations should look like and what they mean and how they deliver value to the customer. So first and foremost, what is a conversation? So now we call this a conversation, but it's effectively any time when you, as the realtor, are having an interaction with your customer that has an intended outcome. So let me give you the example. You might be having a conversation with your client that involves a negotiation, which means that you might talk to them 3 or 4 times over the course of this conversation. But the conversation has a start and a finish, which is what we're going to define for you today. So a home inspection isn't just one dialogue. It might consist of 3 or 4 dialogues with your customer, but it is a strategic conversation that has a beginning and it has a very clear end and an outcome. And when you can start to understand that through the entirety of your transaction with your client, if you compartmentalize the times when you speak to your customer, the things that you say to your customer in each of these occasions, and the deliverable and the outcome that you're trying to get to, you're going to find your experience with your clients and your customers to be far elevated. And you're going to find that they are going to feel super informed and really, really adjust to the process really well. So another thing that I want to clarify, there are really, in this process of 6 to 8 strategic conversations, there are 3 types of conversations. And it's important to understand when we talk about a deliverable and an outcome that we're trying to get to, it's really important to understand which conversation you're in. And there's 3 types. The first one is expectation setting. Now, some of our job is to help people know this is what's going to happen next. And this is what's important to you. And this is why it's important. That is one of our key things that we're trying to communicate. One of the other things that we have to have a conversation about are action taking. These are things where you hope that there is an actual end to the conversation with decisions that are being made. And then the last conversation or type of conversation that you're going to have are affirming conversations. And these are conversations where you're getting the person and giving them confidence. Everything is going exactly as planned. All of this is on course. When you do 6 to 8 strategic conversations consistently through the course of your transaction, what you're going to find are confident customers who know exactly what's happening and are ready to make the decision that is in their best interest. And that's the whole design behind this. So let's talk about expectation setting conversations. So the very first conversation, we call this "you're hired." Okay. This is the "you're hired" conversation. So we go and we those of you that were on our step 3 of the passport to production, you saw that we did something called the 5-step consultation. So when you deliver the 5-step consultation, at the end of that consultation, there is an opportunity for that person to hire you. And when they hire you, that is the "you are hired" moment. They sign the agreement. They say, you know what, Chris, we'd love to have you come work for us. Now, what do most people do at that moment? What happens? They tap dance out. Woo, I got the listing. Yes, I got it. Right. And they go, I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'll let everything go. And then that night, what do you get? What do you get when you don't really get clear on that first conversation? What happens? Chris, you know,
text messages.
You get a lot of text messages. They come out of the woodwork. They usually come sometime after 9 or 10 o'clock. The email starts pouring out. Hey, couple questions about the contract. When should we get the photographer? How much is my photography going to cost? What's the stager going to do to my house, right? All of a sudden, the questions just start erupting. And what does that do to you as the agent? I mean, you just get wiped out, right? We went from excited to oh crap, my client's going crazy. I gotta reset the whole thing because we didn't take the time to stop at that moment when they said "you're hired" and say, this is what's going to happen now. Okay. This is absolutely the most important way to start all of your relationships. So here's what happens. The first thing is the client's going to say, how soon can we get the house on the market? When's the sign coming up? And we always say, listen, we're going to do this right, not rushed. So in order for all of this to come together the best way to give you the best outcome, we adhere to that philosophy. And that is because when we do it right, we will sell your house faster and for more money, which is exactly what you hired me to do. So as far as the timeline is concerned, and this is what we use on our team, you as an individual agent may operate on a different timeline, but we always tell somebody from the time that you sign the contract to the earliest likelihood that we can have this on the market is going to be somewhere between 7 and 10 days. Sometimes you can squeak it a little bit earlier, but in order to do this right, not rushed, which means that we're going to do all the research that we need to do about the property, which means that we're going to make sure that we have the best photographs, that we have the best marketing text, and that we can deploy all of the marketing that we agreed to deploy on behalf of your home. We're going to need some time. It just simply takes time to do it right. Every client will say, I'd rather do it right instead of rushed, because what they understand is that you're going to get more money and sell your house faster when you do it. So Chris, does that, what we experience this all the time though, right? Like where the client says, hey, you're hired. Can we get this on the market tomorrow?
It happens a lot. And I think I want to just note that when you're talking about those expectations, when you do get those calls at night, you set yourself up for is a little bit of stress right off the bat. You're getting stressed as the agent, which means they're going to be stressed if you're stressed. And you almost start to look at that client as a burden instead of what it's our fault, right? And so
yeah, I
love about that expectation and what you've actually created for us. I think Rose might have done this too, is this monopoly board of the timeline. So they can just post that right up on the refrigerator. Everything that you say is going to happen really starts to happen.
And it's super important to just make sure that as the agent, even if you're on a highly productive real estate team and you have excellent staff, and a success team that supports you, it is still your job as the person that has shook their hand and said, I promise to deliver value to you, to also deliver expectations. So first and foremost, we're going to do this right, not rushed, and we're going to agree on a timeline. Typically, this is going to take us anywhere from 7 to 10 days. Now, they might say, I don't want to go on that quick. I need a month. You go, no problem. You run the show, but we're going to do this right, not rushed. We're going to do this on your timeline, but let's just agree that it's going to be somewhere around this framework. And that's really important. The second expectation we need to set is price, right? Because you may have gone in and you may have pitched or delivered the value proposition in June, and they might tell you, well, we're ready to list in August. Well, I mean, in the climate that we're in, do prices change pretty rapidly? Oh, yeah. So if you pick a price in June and you're not listing it till August, the expectation needs to be that at the time we go live, we will be revisiting what the market is doing, because the market is moving in real time all the time. And it's really important for your customer to understand that, because in both declining and increasing market value markets, which we've been in currently, we've been in an increasing market climate. And in the past, we've been in a decreasing market climate. You have to make sure that you set the expectation for the customer that the price is driven by what's happening outside the doors, not what's inside the doors. The biggest thing that's going to influence it is the exterior climate, not the interior climate. And it's really important to set that. So we agree on the idea that price will be established at the moment we go on with that we go live. In addition to that, we want the customer to understand staging, photography, and the deliverable of your value proposition. So in the process of getting them to agree, we talked about all the things that we offer. Hey, we professional staging, we offer professional photography. We're going to do 4 open houses. We're going to do all these things. And then they say, you're hired. And then boom, we get the paper signed, we run out the door, and they go, hey, Chris told me he was going to do open houses. I wonder when he's going to do those. Yeah, all of that stuff needs to be discussed right at the moment when they say you're hired. You take the calendar out and say, now what we'd like to do is we'd like to get all those open houses done. How does this date and this date work for you for our first 2 open houses? Will that work? And you get agreement from the customer. So now they're feeling right away, right? You go from salesperson to delivery of value immediately. And this conversation needs to happen as soon as they say you're hired. This is what you do, okay? The next thing you need to do is you've got to help them understand your communication style. So, Chris, have you ever tried to call me, by the way?
Say that again.
Have you ever tried to call me? You ever called my phone number?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what happens when you call my phone number?
I get a text message back, or it goes to voicemail.
It goes to voicemail every time. That's right. Because I don't actually have the type of schedule that allows me to answer my phone, because when I'm with clients and I'm with agents, I'm all in on that. So I'm not the kind of guy that's going to duck out. And I also am very productive in the way that I treat my schedule. And so I don't have just wide open gaps in my calendar to just answer the phone. So when a client and I are working together, if they think that I'm going to answer the phone every time they call, they're immediately going to be super disappointed, right? If they think that I'm going to answer the phone when I'm at my kid's soccer game or in the grocery store, they're going to be really disappointed, right? Because that's just not how I run my business. So I let them know protocol. Now, again, I'm not encouraging anybody else to do it the way I do it. You should do it the way you do it. But I make sure that in the expectation setting conversation, I tell them, what you will find when you try to reach me is that the phone will often go to voicemail for the reasons I just mentioned, because when I'm with another client, just like when I'm with you, I'm never going to answer my phone. Because I'm very productive and because we do as much business as we do, it's really important to understand that my phone, even though I have it on me all the time, I don't always answer it, but I will always get back to you. I will always get back to you. So if you call me and you need me, be sure to leave a message or send me a text message, and I will immediately get back to you as soon as I have a free moment. So I set that expectation. And what do you think I don't get? You know what I don't get? I don't get those rapid phone calls directly in a row that every agent gets and we despise, simply because I've already told them, you should expect for me to not answer the phone. By the way, if you need to talk to your doctor, does your doctor answer the phone? No, they don't. Does your attorney answer the phone? No, and probably your accountant doesn't answer your phone. And even if you needed to get your oil changed at the car dealership and you call them and say, I need to get my oil changed, does your mechanic answer the phone? No, they don't, because they're under the hood of a car fixing it. So people understand. Real estate agents are the only ones that have this unrealistic expectation that we should be answering the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not manageable. It's not realistic. So I explain to people when you're going to hear from me, what your expectations should be when you call me, and they always are okay with it because I also always do what I say I'm going to do. So when I tell them I will always call you back, you're darn right. I always call them back. So that's important. In addition to conversation number one, expectation setting, you're going to help them understand that showings will happen at their discretion. You're going to give them some dialogue and some expectation about how showing protocol will happen. This is what your house should look like when you get showings. This is what the way it should be treated. Your lights should be on. You should make sure that it's put into the staging condition that you expected it to be in when photos were taken. The reason you're doing this, by the way, you're actually not giving them showing protocol because they don't already know. You're doing it because I promise you, if you don't do it in the expectation conversation, they're going to want to talk to you about it sometime in the next week to 10 days while the house is getting ready to go on the market. So what we're doing, remember, is we're being efficient and we're making sure that our customers have all the information that they need going into the process. So we give them an outline of showing protocol. We use showing time. Many agents use showing time. In Connecticut, we use showing time. It's a fantastic system. And so I just basically give the customer an overview of what to expect from showing time. And the last one, and probably the most important one, the other one where as a realtor, you're going to get assaulted if you don't talk about feedback, is help them understand realistic expectations of feedback. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what I want you to understand is that when an agent comes to see the property, we are going to proactively try to get feedback from them as soon as we can. What you should expect is that it's going to probably be about a 24-hour turnaround time before we get feedback from any showing. Simply because if that agent took those clients out, there's a probability they may be looking at other homes at the same time. And typically that agent is going to make feedback a part of their follow-up system for the following day. So if we don't get feedback, we will make an effort to reach out to the agent directly, either via text message or a phone call, and we'll make a few attempts. But just understand that in a very active market, especially one like this, you're probably only going to get feedback about 25 to 40% of the time. And then there's going to be lots of agents that just come through and don't tell us anything. At the end of the day, we can't lose a lot of sleep over it. We're going to take the data for what the data is worth, and we're going to work with the best that we have. So, Chris, if I were your realtor and we sat down after you said you're hired, and we took about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes to walk through all of those things, how are you feeling right now walking into the listing?
I feel pretty confident that you're going to get. I feel more confident if you didn't go over those. I feel really like you're a professional.
Yeah. You're going to feel like we've got a plan, right? Yeah. You're going to feel like, okay, this guy's got a plan.
In a conversation, right? A two-way dialogue. As you're having this conversation, you want to pause in these things and ask them what they heard, right?
Yeah.
Not only the visual that you gave us in that roadmap that I have in front of me when we're going through that time. I used it last night on a listing appointment, and we walked through every step of what they could expect during this. But I would pause on each step. So what did you hear? How are you feeling about this spot?
Yeah.
Right? I want to hear as we're going through this, so it's a two-way conversation, not just me talking.
Yeah. 100%. Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. And exactly, really, really important to get a reboot and make sure that you're validating that you answered all their questions. So that is conversation number one, which is expectation setting. And do you see how, for all the agents that are out there watching this, do you see how when you nail this conversation and you cover all these bullet points, how what you're really doing is you're just anticipating the inevitable questions that are going to happen for any reasonable seller in the timeline that is in the future, which is going to save you time and create leverage in your life so that you can go focus on the most important things in your business, which is leads and listings. So conversation number 2, conversation number 3, and conversation number 4 are action-taking conversations. So this is now you've set expectations, you're hired. The next conversation that you're going to have is the house goes live and you need to contact the person and you need to say, we are on the market and this is what's happening. Okay. So these are the next strategic conversations. This is what's happening. Now, we put in here, typically when we design this flow, we used to say the conversation 2 and 3 would typically happen somewhere around 7 to 10 days. But in the current market, it's got to be much faster than that, right? So in the current market, conversation 2 and 3 might be within 48 hours of the house going on the market because so much activity is happening. And so what you're really doing is you're basically getting back in touch with the client and saying, here's what's happening. Feedback has been X. This is what people are saying about the price. Our next steps are, and this is the real job of the counseling of the relationship. And this is also where lots and lots of agents fail. This is where lots and lots of agents let down their customer because they promised everything leading up to the transaction. They didn't do expectation setting. The listing goes on the market, and then the customer feels like they are in the dark. And so the whole point is strategic conversations 2 and 3 have a result. The result is the next step is. So let's give a for instance on this. Let's say that we've listed a home, we've listed it for $425,000 and we put it on the market. As soon as it's on the market, we start getting showings and activity. The customers are excited. Maybe they're sending you a text message, super excited. We've got all these showings. It's going to be great. And then 12 showings happen on a Saturday, 6 showings happen on a Sunday, no offers come in. And what do you do as an agent? And you don't call or have any conversation. Where do you think their mindset goes without some dialogue or strategic dialogue at that moment? I mean, what would happen to you, Chris?
I mean, I think the first thing is like they wonder, are you alive still? Right? They see these showing requests and they're like, did my agent die? Is he missing opportunities for me to maximize and get an offer?
Yeah. Yeah, you really, really start to get super freaked out. Like they start to worry, like, did I make a mistake? And I'll tell you again, early in my career, before I had gotten mastery over this process, you know, I'd have clients call me and we're 2 or 3 days in with 16 showings and I'm skipping down I'm like, man, we're killing, can't wait for that offer. And they call and they're mad. And I'm like, what are you mad? Why are you mad? What are you mad? We're killing it. We got all these shows. We're gonna get multiple. And they're like, you haven't called us. We don't know what's going on. We don't have any feedback. We don't know. Are we overpriced? Why isn't somebody offering it? And then of course they get that one piece of random feedback, right? That it says like, we love the house. Everything was great, except we didn't like the blue wall. And they're at Home Depot picking out paint. They're like, we're ready to repaint the kitchen. And you're like, what are you doing? Stop the presses. This is one of the things that we have to get clear about. This is the consultation part of the job. Conversation 2 and 3 requires revisiting exactly what's happened. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're using data. We're using resources that we have. We're staying out of emotion around this because your client's going to be very emotional around what's happening in those first few days. They're going to feel a lot of energy leading up to it. Then there's the launch. And then they're like, what's going to happen next? This is a super important timeline for you to be communicating with them. This is the feedback. Basically, here's where we're at from pricing. And the next steps are. Now, in a declining market or a flat market or a market like we used to have in Connecticut, this would be price reduction conversations. Very early. So let's say you're 1 to 2 weeks in. If you are on the market 1 to 2 weeks in any climate, it doesn't matter if average days on market is 200 days. If you're on the market 1 to 2 weeks and you don't have significant showing activity, the answer is your price needs to be revisited, period. Now, we also, when we talk about price reductions, we always talk about the right price, not the price that they'll accept. right? So when we get into this dialogue and this strategic conversation, we're revisiting the market. We're pulling up all of the examples of homes like theirs that have sold in the past. We're showing them how they compare, what the feedback is, and then we're asking them, based on the homes that are on the market, based on your home and the feedback, what do you think the right price is for us at this moment in time? And you're letting the client pick the right price, not the price that they can live with, the right price. And we really have to be careful and conscious of guiding them to that. So this is conversation 2 and 3. Now we call it 2 and 3. And the reason that this is titled 6 to 8 strategic conversations is because in a perfect flow, you might only have to have 6 conversations, because you never have to have a feedback, pricing is, and next steps are a conversation, because you get to, we have an offer, right? So sometimes conversation number 4 is actually conversation number 3. And here's how we define this. Now, this is also, again, we're going to give you framework for how to present and discuss this with your customers. So when we get an offer, we always want to present our customer with the 3 options, because even if it is an outrageously exceptional offer or an absolutely terrible offer that we know they'll never accept, I always frame every conversation with, we have an offer. Our options are, we can accept, we can decline, or we can counter offer. Which one would you like to do? Now, they're always going to have questions. Your customers are going to have questions. They're going to want to know, well, what would you do, et cetera. And what I think is really important is the reason that we define it like this, your options are accept it, decline it, or counter offer, is because we never want them to feel, we're trying to keep them in the framework of making good decisions around their options. So let me tell you why this matters. It is our fiduciary responsibility as a realtor that when we get an offer, we must present it, right? Even when it's a terrible offer. Now, Chris, when you get a terrible offer and you present it to your customer, how do they react?
They're going to react the way I react, first of all. You know, this just happened. The offer came in on one of our listings, and it was atrocious. But I wrote them, because you taught me this, I wrote them unemotional. I said, hey, congratulations, man. I said, congratulations. We got an offer. All right. And they responded, well, what do you think about it? I'm like, it really doesn't matter what I think about it. It's really what you think about it. And if you think it's inappropriate, you're going to do 1 or 3 things. This is exactly what I said. You're going to accept it, decline it, or we're going to counter. My recommendation is you counter. Keep them on the dance floor.
That's right. I agree. And you nailed that point, which is that our customers will always mirror, our behavior. So what our tendency is we get a terrible offer, and then we want our customers to know that we're just as mad as they are, right? And so what do? This is awful, and I can't believe it, and I'm so angry, and oh my God, how dare they? And I can't believe the audacity of that agent. I thought they were a better agent. Just forget all that. Drop it. It doesn't matter. Our job is to help our clients get what they want. And the way that we do that is through effective communication about options that are available to them and counsel on what the impact of those decisions might be. And so when we get an offer, we have an offer. Based on the offer, your options are accept it as it's been proposed, decline it outright, thanks but no thanks, or counteroffer. And there are strategic reasons why you would do one or why you would do any one of those. And it's important then to dialogue with the customer. Well, based on the number of showings that we've had, and based on the value in this offer, and the fact that they're 20% over asking price, and they're saying that they can close quickly and meet your timeline, I actually think this is an offer that's worthy of us accepting. Well, based on the fact that this offer came in, it's $100,000 below asking price. They're asking for us to wait for them to sell a home that's in Alaska, and they want the town to approve pet tigers in the backyard. I think this is one that we should just say thanks, but no thanks. we're not actually interested in this particular offer. And based on the fact that this offer came in and it's pretty close to what we originally listed it at, there are some terms and conditions in here that we think we could clean up. Their deposit's a little low. I don't like the fact that they're asking for 21 days for a home inspection. I think we should get them to tighten that up. Maybe this is a good one for us to give them a counter offer. We can counter offer on some of the terms and the price to maybe make this a little bit better. So which one would you like to do? Now, we always want to present it with that because, again, we're framing the conversation around the actual practical decision-making. This is the key to this, guys. Conversations, remember, are a dialogue that are strategic. These are strategic ways to deliver the information that is critical in the process of helping your client get to the closing table in a way that empowers them to make the best decisions for them. So we have an offer. Your options are accept it, decline it, or counteroffer. And this is, again, an action-taking conversation. The end of this conversation, the goal is to have a decision. All right. Once we get to a decision, what comes after the first offer? What comes after the offer? We've accepted their offer. We've counteroffered. We've got a conclusion. We're under contract. Well, that's it, right? We're under contract. That's it. Next time we see them is closing. That is incorrect. We have a couple more things we need to get through. Conversation number 5, home inspection. Now, once again, the emotion takes over in this situation. Many agents will get hijacked by home inspections. And I hear it all the time. I hear the agents say, I'm trying to save a deal. I'm trying to save a deal. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me. There is no such thing as saving a deal. Repeat after me, everybody. There's no such thing as saving a deal. You are not saving a deal, okay? That is incorrect. That's not what's happening. You're bringing your own personal need for this deal to close to the client's situation, and that is an incorrect way to advocate for people. Do not try to save a deal. Inside of a home inspection, what's going to happen is your client, the seller, has just gotten a home inspection report. They've gotten a list of things that are necessary for that buyer based on what the buyer is asking for, right? And they're now being told that the house that they've loved and cared for 20 years is about to fall into the ground, into a muddy cesspool. It's termite infested, and they're feeling very upset, right? What we do is, rather than bring emotion to it, we deliver them the information and we tell them, based on what's been delivered, your options are accept what they're asking for, decline in total, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do anything, or counteroffer what they've requested. Now, here's the one that we're really trying to stay away from. And Chris, there's a word, sometimes you'll hear this, you'll hear people say, you know, it's not about the money, it's about the
principle.
Principle. God dang it. They all say it. They all want to be right. They just want that principle. They want that integrity in the deal. And they're just pissed off that home inspector said that leaky hot water heater is on its last. There's no way that thing's worked for 14 years. It's not on its last legs. It's going to work another 15. I guarantee it. How dare they insult my hot water heater? This just feels like they're taking advantage of me. I've already reduced the price. Well, here's what we need to do. We need to convert that conversation. We need to be very strategic about that converting, and we need to make sure that conversation becomes the same language for everybody. And this is where we say, well, let's forget that it's the hot water heater. Let's turn this conversation into one that's about dollars and cents. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you agreed to sell the house we listed it at $425,000. We were on the market for 5 days. We didn't have any other offers, but we agreed to sell it for $420,000, which you said was an acceptable price to you. The hot water heater in question that they're asking for you to replace is probably going to cost about $1,500 to replace. So the question is, if this particular buyer were to say, I don't want to buy your house anymore because of the hot water heater, but it only costs $1,500 to actually get them to actually buy the house, is it still something that you want to tell them, absolutely no, you're not going to do it? Let's talk about this in terms of dollars and cents, which is a common language that we all have, because for one person, the hot water heater is about principle. It's about integrity. It's about doing the right thing. And for someone else, that hot water heater, for that buyer, that hot water heater might represent a flooded basement. It might represent an insurance claim. It might represent the worst possible scenario. But if we all agree that what it really represents is a $1,500 investment, it suddenly takes a lot of the energy out of it. So in the home inspection, we simply present what's being requested. We show the home inspection and what it revealed. And then we very quickly, as soon as we can, we convert the conversation to common language around dollars and cents. Did you ever notice that home inspections sometimes devolve into these really petty little conversations about faucets and termites and treatments, and these things don't actually matter to the person as much as them getting their house sold? And so it's our job as the counselor to be very strategic in helping the customer understand that in the context of your house selling for $425,000 or $420,000 or $418,500, that hot water heater really isn't as relevant. And it's not really about principle, is it? No, it's not. So once again, your options are you can accept it, you can decline it, or you can counteroffer. So we have to be very clear what we're getting at. So thoughts on that, Chris?
Yeah, so this just happened right before we get on this call. I had a conversation, inspection came in on one of our listings. The house had been on the market a little bit, longer than it needed to be. We had a price reduction. We missed it. And we got the buyer in there, home inspection, and I delivered it last night. I said, when would be a good time to talk tomorrow? Because it was late by the time I forwarded it, and I wasn't going to have that conversation. I wanted to sit on a little bit. I said, when would be a good time, assuming there's a good time tomorrow, between this time and this time, not during my important time, but during this time that I had available for them to talk about it. We got on the phone, and I unemotionally, and you have helped me so much through this over the last 4 or 5 years since I've been around you in those hacks is, the only reason that I get upset about it, or any other agent that might be watching this in our industry gets upset about it, you said it, is because we're looking to salvage something for us, not be the best person, the best professional for our clients. And I simply said to them, listen, you have 1 of 3 options. With what they were asking for $5,000, they said, we'll let it go for $5,000. And they came up with some other things because they want to get a good deal. And my clients think they're already given a good deal, right?
Right.
And so I gave them those three points. You can accept it, you can decline it, or we can come up with some kind of resolution. Here's my concern if you just decline it. The concern was it could cost you more than what they're asking.
Yeah,
right.
well,
and
absolutely.
At the end of it, I got it right over here in my little coffee shop, is they said, okay, let's do that then. But here's the thing that I want to point out in the conversations that I don't see, and I know we talk about it a lot, is in all these conversations, whether it's number 1 through right here in 5, you always have to bring in the motivation. That piece is missing. You always want to remind them that, hey, once we get through this, you're going to get to here. Right. We want that finish point. And I do that. I was like, with these clients, they've already sold, bought another home. This house just empty. I said, isn't this going to be great once we get through this inspection conversation, and you're going to be able to get rid of this house, and you're going to free yourself of that. You're going to collect your money, and you're going to move on. And she said, yeah,
that's a really, really valid point, Chris, and something to remember to weave through all of these strategic conversations is why the client is taking this action to begin with, all of them. So really, really good point. So conversation number 5 concludes once again with an action step. We are either accepting, declining, or counteroffering what has been proposed. And at some point you get to a conclusion. Either the buyer backs out and doesn't move forward and back on the market we go, or we've come to a conclusion and everybody agrees to move forward. Presuming that everybody agrees to move forward, we now get to the fun part, ladies and gentlemen. We've earned it. This is where we have now earned the right to do the thing that we really want to do, which is show off how good we are, right? We've gotten through all the tough stuff. The offer's in, it's accepted, we negotiated it, we got the listing live in a way that the customer was happy, we got through the home inspection, right? And now we get to affirming. Now, once again, This is 6 to 8 strategic conversations. You don't skip any of them. It's like leaving the flour out of a cake recipe. If you skip them, you will not get the recipe or the cake that you wanted. You'll get crepes instead of cake, right? And we want cake. So when we're going through this, you really want to make sure that you do this. So now conversation number 6. Now, when I say conversation, once again, this is a dialogue with the customer. This is a moment when you as the realtor must do your job. Now, sometimes the mortgage lender sends an email to the customer and says, we just got commitment letter, right? Commitment is in, mortgage commitment's in. And then what we do, because we're fast paced and we're busy, is we just shoot an email over to the customer and go, commitment letter's in. Yeah, good to go. And the customer goes, cool, I guess. Awesome. You're missing an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. You're missing an opportunity to affirm the relationship. And this is why this is an affirming conversation. When the mortgage commitment comes in on the buyers that are buying your customer's listing, you pick up the phone, you call the client, and you say, I've just forwarded you an email, which is the mortgage commitment, which means that we are 90% through the process. Everything is on track. I'm just really excited because this was the last big hurdle we had to get over. Now, nothing's done until it's done. But of all the things that we had to be validated around this transaction, of all the things that could have gone wrong, the vast majority of them are in the rearview mirror right now. So good news, everything's on track. Next, you're going to hear from me. And the next time you hear from me is going to be when the attorney schedules the closing. That's the next time we're going to talk. So super important. What we're doing is we're validating all is good. We're also telling them who sets the closing? The attorney sets the closing, because what we often do in this process, and what I see agents do all the time, is they're in this process, this comes in, and now the client says, what do I do next? When's the closing? And what do? We pick that up as soon as the client gives it to us, and we start running around trying to solve the problem of a closing with no power, no influence, and no ability to affect the outcome. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a realtor on this call, I'm going to remind you, you have nothing to do with when the closing happens. The closing will be scheduled between the buyer's attorney, the seller's attorney, in counsel with their clients. So if you are playing a role of trying to solve the problem of setting a closing date, you're in the wrong lane. Okay, so we need to remind our customers the closing will be scheduled by the attorney. Your attorney is the point of contact to get that information. They will let me know when they let you know. And that way, that now you've done it once again, you've affirmed the process is in order and you've set the expectation. This is super important step because again, you've done a great job up to this point. You've killed it. You've crushed it. But if you disappear now, you know what? You're degrading the relationship. You've disappeared on them at the time when you have the most opportunity to celebrate the relationship and the success that you're having with your customer. Mortgage process is all set. Really happy to report all is on track. The closing will be scheduled by your attorney. Next time we talk will be when we get confirmation of that. And boom, closing has been scheduled. This is your next affirming conversation. Once again, an opportunity for you to celebrate with your customer. These are not conversations you want to skip. These are the good ones. You call them up. Hey, I just got word. Looks like the closing is going to happen on the 15th. I didn't quite get the time, but that's great. Just wanted to make sure that you guys were all set. You had all the information you needed. We should have either sent you an email about what to do about utilities. You should shut them off. Your attorney should have given you some guidance about that. Just want to make sure that that closing date works for you and that you'll be able to be out of the house and that you've got accommodation set, especially if you're closing on something else. Just want to confirm all that. Is there anything else that I can do for you leading up to that to make sure that this all goes smoothly? This is when they're going to start saying, no, this has been great. This has been really good. I felt informed. I felt like I knew what was going to happen. I felt like all of these things were happening in order. It all made sense to me. Okay. Really, really important to set these expectations. Now, right around now, you start really becoming, this is when you get to have earned the next level of a relationship. You are no longer just the service provider. You can start having those conversations about, I can't wait to invite you to our events. You're going to be having a great time. I can't wait to see you guys after you close. Now, everybody does this differently. I'm going to share. I do not personally attend my closings. And again, I'm not in judgment of those of you who do. Some people get a lot of value out of going to the closing and sitting with the client. Personally, it feels awkward to me to go there and have nothing to do and nothing and have no engagement other than to pick up a commission check. It feels a little weird. So I always tell my clients in this conversation, I won't be at the closing. You're in great hands with your attorney. And at this point, everything is set up, but I would love to stop by sometime in the next couple of days, once you're all settled, just to say hi, shake your hand, and drop off a nice little something for you guys. This is just a strategy that I've employed over the years, which, by the way, who's in charge of when the closing happens? Not me, attorneys, right? Which means that if the closing gets scheduled at a time when I have something else going on, suddenly I'm scrambling to make my calendar work to do something that I had nothing to do with, where I actually have no actual influence, where it doesn't actually matter whether I'm there. So what?
Or you miss things like, you know, doing what your job is actually going to have
right.
more
Yeah, you miss the other part of your job. Yeah. Or maybe I have to miss like something that's important with my kids or something else, right? Which is also not acceptable. So, you know, we just make sure, but who's in charge when, hey, I'm going to stop by in the next couple of days? Who's in charge of that time? Me, right? So I get to choose when that happens. So conversation number 7, congratulations, the closing scheduled. Your attorney's going to be in touch with final details, your final numbers. Walkthrough is going to be in the morning. Make sure that you have your utility stuff set up, and just want to make sure that you have everything set up for when you have to be out of the house. So we just set that up. That's our final, it's our next to last strategic conversation. And then the last one, the very last strategic conversation that you need to have. And again, what is it about the strategic conversation? There is an intended outcome. Once again, an affirming conversation. Congratulations. I heard everything went awesome today. I heard from the attorney, you guys all, that everything closed, that the new buyers are on their way in. This is awesome. I can't wait to celebrate with you guys at our next event. I can't wait to stop by and drop off a little something. I hope this has been an amazing experience. Just really curious, since we're connected, do you have any feedback or insight for me? Was there anything that was really great about this process, or a place where I could have done a better job for you? Ask the question, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be afraid of it, because 99% of the time, if you follow these instructions, they're going to say to you, this has been awesome. I felt informed. I felt like I knew exactly what was coming. Even when we had that little hiccup at this point in time, that thing that didn't go, even with the home inspection, blah, 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 you helped us figure it out. This has been a great experience. And in the few instances where they've had trouble or they haven't felt great, you know, you owe it to yourself to get the feedback. Ladies and gentlemen, you owe it to yourself to improve, to be growth-minded, and be willing to take it when they have something that they need to tell you that didn't go well, for no other purpose than you want to improve who you are and how you deliver value. So do you have any feedback or insight for me? And before I let you go, do you know anyone else that I should be talking to? Because I would love to be able to deliver this level of value and service that I delivered to you to some of your friends and family. And I hope that you'd consider referring your favorite friends, family, people that you know, people at work, to us to do the same thing. And you'll be getting a link for a review request. I would love if you would give us a 5-star review on Google, so that other people that don't know who we are have some expectation of what to expect. So congratulations, you're closed. That is strategic conversation number 8. So Chris, what do we take out of this one? What's important here?
I think number 1, the feedback, and here's what's most important that I think of. We're on this call now 48 minutes, and most of us will spend an hour and a half letting them show us every detail of that home, the crown molding, you know, the paintings that are on the wall. None of it really matters, but what you do in this 46 minutes of those expectations, you hit on every one of those things, and you've made these deposits of what we call trust, because you can either have a client for a little bit or you can have them for a lifetime. And I've done it both ways. The ones that I've had for a little bit was when I never had the expectation conversations.
Right.
You having every bit of these conversations, this is where you spend your time. This is what makes you stand out. That's different from any other amateur versus the professional that does it right. And so,
and ladies and gentlemen, yeah, you know, the thing is, guys, like, let's just really call it what it is. This is the job, right? If you want to be a full-time professional real estate agent, what you must do is deliver this as the value proposition, as the deliverable actual value that your customer gets. This is it. This is the job. So if you can't do these things, which again, 6 to 8 strategic conversations, you've got to start thinking about what it is that you're really signing up for. So I appreciate all of this feedback. I want feedback too. I mean, Chris, I think we're on, this is number 4. We've got 2 more to do. Tune in next week, next Thursday for part 5, and then the following Thursday for part 6 of our Back to the Basics 6 strategic conversations today. Next week, we're going to talk about the same process with your buyer clients. How do you make sure that your buyer clients are signing up and that they know exactly what's happening everywhere, especially in this market, especially with things moving so fast? Are we doing the best job we can to set them up for success? So any takeaways?
The recordings, Matt, are they going to, where can they get this? Where can they get the
all of these are available on the Miale Team Mastermind Facebook page. We're posting all of them. So if you are not a member of the Miale Team Mastermind Facebook page, just go ahead and ask to be a member, and we'll admit you into that. And then all of these recordings, plus a ton of other stuff that we do, is all on there. So love having everybody here. Appreciate you guys, and hope you learned something.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, guys.